Hello, this is Dave Hurwitz, Executive Editor at ClassicsToday.com, here to talk to you about two sequels to Rachmaninoff's Second Piano Concerto, one of the most popular pieces in the entire repertoire, and it has been since it was first composed in the first decade of the 20th century. Now, there are few composers who get less respect from serious musicology than Rachmaninoff, and so you'd think that few serious composers would be copying Rachmaninoff. That's better. There we go. That looks a little bit more stable. But the fact of the matter is, two of them did. Perhaps they weren't as serious a composer as the serious composers who did not copy Rachmaninoff. But actually, the copies are really very, very good and very, very interesting. Now, of course, nobody is wholesale borrowing here. That's not what we're talking about. What I'm talking about is two works that share certain specific features. And they're not even structurally the most important ones, but they are immediately identifiable fingerprints. You know, the kind of things that you listen to and you go, oh, yeah, sure, that's Rachmaninoff's Second Piano Concerto. He does that. I'm talking about in the first movement, first of all, the opening. The opening is, the piano does a thing for itself, all by itself, and then the main theme comes surging in on the orchestra, accompanied by rapid figurations in the piano underneath. The piano accompanies the orchestra. I mean, that's sort of the original concept here. Now, in Rachmaninoff, the opening piano flourish is a series of chiming chords. And it can be anything else. It can be whatever the composer wants to do. And the two composers I have in mind are Hamilton Harty and Leroy Anderson. Probably not names that would come readily to mind. As you know, Hamilton Harty was a great, great conductor in the early decades of the 20th century, and he was also a composer of quite a bit of skill and a complete lack of originality. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, because if you have skill, you can still write terrific music, even if it's not the most original stuff in the universe. And his piano concerto is the Rachmaninoff Concerto Goes to Ireland. That's basically what happens in the Harty Piano Concerto. Leroy Anderson, of course, was a master of light music. He's famous for, the typewriter and his Christmas thing. Da 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 ba ba da dum bum bum ba da dum ba. He did all these wonderful, wonderful short things that we still hear all the time. And he wrote a piano concerto, but he was dissatisfied with it and he withdrew it, and it only surfaced in 1989. And it's absolutely wonderful. The only reason it doesn't get performed more frequently is probably because it's only about 20 minutes long. It's fairly short. But I want to play you Rachmaninoff's original opening first, just so we remember what it is. Okay, you know it. It's lovely. It's wonderful. And now let's listen to the other two guys' take on this opening. First, Hamilton Harty. See what I mean? The opening piano thing, it includes the orchestra. It's a lot more, fidgety than Rachmaninoff's. Rachmaninoff is kind of slow and dark and Slavic and melancholy. Harty is more lively and jumpy, but the concept's the same, and it's even more the same with Leroy Anderson. Listen to this. Yummy tunes. Isn't it gorgeous? I mean, the tunes are just fabulous in this piece. And it's really basically exactly the same concept. Now, when we get to the finale, the concept is a little different. I'm talking about the luscious second subject. You know, in Rachmaninoff, it's full moon and empty arms, you know, do 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 do. You know how that thing goes, right? Well, I got to tell you something. Hamilton Harty might have thought he was going to get away with it, but he really doesn't get away with it. Here's the Rachmaninoff as it sort of comes back at the end, you know, for that big final climax. And here at approximately the same point in the movement, it's actually Harty's final climax is a little differently structured, but here's one of those moments, a similar moment from the Harty where, oh my, that tune gets awfully close. Give it a shot. See what I mean? It really, really sounds like that. Actually, you know, what's very interesting is that idea of the luscious lyrical tune that comes back at the end. I mean, that wasn't Rachmaninoff's idea. That was Tchaikovsky, right? From the First Piano Concerto. You know, that famous passage, the same sort of concept. You know, it's a big climax, the piano's rushing, and then the huge lyrical tune soars in with the piano clobbering underneath with major heavy-duty chordal work. You know, I really was trying to figure out who sort of invented that concept. And one of the earliest composers to do it, actually, was Dvorak. Both his piano concerto, which nobody seems to care about, which is a gorgeous work, has a very sort of Slavic/exotic second subject in its finale, but even more, Dvorak's Fourth Symphony. The finale of that piece has this wonderful lyrical tune that comes back at the end in a very, very proto-Tchaikovskyan climax, although it was composed well before those guys did anything similar in the 1860s and 70s, you know, which is when Dvorak was working on those early symphonies. But that was Hamilton Harty's version of the finale of the Rachmaninoff Second Piano Concerto, and Anderson doesn't even try it. Anderson's finale is a lighthearted, very American-sounding sort of square dance or hoedown type thing that's only about 5.5 minutes long. And I'm going to play it for you anyway, just because it's fantastic. I want you to hear what it sounds like. Now, before signing off here, I do want to take a minute and tell you about these recordings. They're all on the Naxos label, which has very graciously allowed me to play musical examples because, unlike most of the folks out there in the classical music world, they understand that the best way to sell a record is to let people listen to it. So the Rachmaninoff is Bernd Glemser with the Polish National Radio Symphony Orchestra under Antoni Witt. These are very, very beautiful, deliberate, but warm and rich and yummy performances that I like very much. And the Hamilton Harty is Peter Donahoe with the Ulster Orchestra, conducted by Takao Yuasa, also on Naxos, an excellent disc that also contains Harty's comedy overture and fantasy pieces, which are from an Eastern romance. Doesn't that sound yummy? And then finally, Leroy Anderson. This is from the series of Leroy Anderson's complete orchestral music that Naxos did with Leonard Slatkin and the BBC Concert Orchestra. The pianist is Jeffrey Beagle, an excellent, excellent soloist. This is one of the best things that Slatkin did recently, actually, this Leroy Anderson series, because the music there are just lots of interesting pieces that you'll discover. And if you get a chance, it runs to, I think, 5 discs or 4 discs. It's quite a fine series, full of charming light music. And if you like light music, and I love light music, good quality light music, it's great stuff, then you'll want to hear more Leroy Anderson. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed these little sequels to Rachmaninoff's Piano Concerto No. 2 and found them surprising. Keep on listening, folks. Thank you so much for joining me.